Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for attending our weekly soiree, Mondays with Mooch. It's great to see you all. Come on in. Don't be bashful. First, I want to thank Ocean First Bank, our platinum presenting partner. Thank them for their support. It's a fantastic bank, and they are so good to the arts in this area. So, if you have a chance to do your banking, think of Ocean First Bank. And here we go. We appreciate that you are here and sharing this event with us. For those of you who may not know, my name is Joe Muccioli. Muccioli, that's where Mooch comes from. I am the artistic director for the Jazz Arts Project, a nonprofit organization who for 15 years has been presenting and honoring jazz with world-class concerts and high-level education programs. Okay, and so our guest this evening is the dashing, debonair crooner pianist and award-winning composer Tony DeSare. Ever since I first met him, he has been a stalwart and fashionable entertainer, a handsome devil that always made the ladies in the audience swoon. Wait, that's not him. Oops. That's Uncle Floyd. How'd he get in here? Well, okay, there he is. I don't remember how Tony and I first met, but somehow he called me to help him out with putting together and conducting for a show which would be his Atlantic City debut. Back then, entertainer Joe Piscopo had a weekly show at the Sands Casino, and each week he had a guest. This week it was Tony. So we went down and did the show, and actually, as it happened, that's how I ended up as Joe's music director and conductor for like 12 years. Anyway, Tony's career took off from there. He has been named a rising star male vocalist in Downbeat magazine. He has been winning critical and popular acclaim for his concert performances throughout North America and abroad, from jazz clubs to Carnegie Hall to Las Vegas, headlining with Don Rickles and major symphony orchestras. And let's not forget, Tony has graced our stages at Jazz Arts Project's productions throughout the years, starting with the Summer Jazz Cafe at one of the very first seasons we did, and then the Sinatra Birthday Bash, and the Enchanted Evening of Song. I think he may be the only performer who has performed at the trifecta of our events. Tony has brought his fresh take on old school class around the globe. He has 3 top 10 Billboard jazz albums under his belt and has been featured on the CBS Early Show, NPR, Prairie Home Companion, The Today Show, and his music has even been posted by social media celebrity juggernaut George Takei. He has adapted and arranged a wide variety of songs from songbook standards to songs by Burt Bacharach, Bill Withers, Prince, Billy Joel, etc., etc., etc. He even has recorded 20 versions of Jingle Bells, but that's another story. Let's not leave out the dozens of original songs that he wrote himself. He actually has upcoming performances scheduled, a rarity among today's performers in these pandemic days. In the meantime, he's putting up a new song on Facebook every single day, along with originals every few weeks, and even some full-length viral concerts. Tony has embraced the virtual world, and based on his following, that world has embraced his talents. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my buddy, Tony DeSare.
Hi there.
Hello.
Well, that was a great intro, Joe. Can I take you on the road and have you say that intro before I go everywhere?
Sure, why not? How about I do it virtually and just send it in?
Oh, there you go.
Right, like we're all doing these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Since you moved all the way down to Atlanta, don't get to see us often.
I know, 2 years ago.
Yeah. You're digging it down there?
I love it, actually, yeah. I mean, I'll always be a New Yorker at heart, but
Sure.
I really love being down here. I just couldn't take the winter anymore. There was like a point that it just there was a point there was no coming back from. I'd done a show in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in February, and I came home I was living in Peekskill. We'd moved out of the city, and I'd just gotten home, and I had to go get the mail because my wife didn't want to get the mail because there'd been a storm. And I went out there and I couldn't get the mailbox open because it was frozen shut. And I had to go get a hammer and hammer the mailbox open. And I
Oh,
said, "That's it. We got to move south."
there you go.
Yeah.
And you're loving it, I assume.
Yeah, really love it, and I've been able to. This is the first floor of the house here. That's become my studio, and it's really what I always wanted since I was, a teenager learning how to play piano. Was my own studio, and
And your wife is cool with that, right?
oh yeah, well we picked out the house with that in mind. So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
That's great. Well, I think you were one of our very first shows at the Summer Jazz Cafe. I think it was actually the second season. The first season we were just getting our feet wet and figuring out what the hell we're doing. But the second season, I think you came in with Bucky Pizzarelli,
that's right.
who
But we did.
sadly we lost this year.
I know. Yeah, Bucky really meant a lot to me and was very important in my career and also just in a great relationship in my life. I saw him in February this year. I
Oh wow!
went over to visit him. I was in New York for a day and went over there and I sang to him. He was, at that point, um, mentally not really kind of aware of who I was until I sang. And I sang and
Right?
he knew exactly who I was. So
And I
it's
bet,
cool.
and I bet you knew he knew the chord changes you were playing too. You were
Yeah, he
singing too.
probably did. Yeah.
Wow. So anyway, that's that was a great show, and I I remember distinctly standing by uh, the doorway during your performance with Bucky in our Summer Jazz Cafe, and it was all new to us, so we didn't know what to expect, right? So
Right.
I'm looking around the audience, and the whole audience was just silent. I mean, they were just like soaking up the music and listening. I figured, they would be chatting and just talking and this and that. It was just silent. And I asked, it was a woman who was helping us out at that time. I asked her, um, "Why is it so quiet? Are they digging it?" She said, "Every woman in this joint is falling in love with Tony right now, so there's no talking going on."
That's funny.
But
I,
go ahead.
some joke. I was there that night, and I had my mom with me, who was in the late '80s, early '90s. And Tony came over to the table, and until the day she died, she never stopped talking about how nice he was that night.
Wow.
So, just
Hi, Joe.
really special night, Tony.
Good to see
We
you.
go back a long way.
We sure do, yeah. Every single time I played Shanghai Jazz, I think you probably have like a 95% attendance record of every
Yeah, I might
Shanghai
have been
Jazz
sick
event.
once. Anyway, I'll get off, but I just had to tell you how much that meant to my mom.
That's great, Joe.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Good to see you, Joe. You're looking good. Wow. You have long-term fans there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Yeah, Joe, I
fantastic.
started playing Shanghai Jazz in probably 2003.
Oh, that early.
Yeah, and I think Joe Lang was one of the first kind of every time I would play there, he would come and bring a group and yeah, that was how I learned how to do a show because up until I got a chance to start doing Shanghai Jazz, I was just kind of playing hotels and bars and things like that, piano bars, doing 4-hour gigs with people talking
Right.
and Shanghai Jazz was kind of a mix because at the time, like, if you did something, what I realized playing Shanghai Jazz was if I played something really engaging and good, people would stop talking. And if I didn't, if I just kind of played like a normal, like not very arranged standard and just soloed over it, they would start talking again. So I learned, so I would get like 1 or 2 songs that would quiet the room down, and then I just kept adding, and then before long, my whole show was songs that kept everybody quiet.
Yeah.
So
There's your
that's how I learned
education.
how to do it.
That's fantastic. David sold the place.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
and they are in fact having shows there still, and they did an outdoor garden kind of thing.
Yeah, I follow them on Facebook, and I see when
Okay,
they go live and they have people playing out in the back parking lot there. Yeah.
right,
Well,
right.
I hope that we all figure it out, and everybody, all these clubs, and everybody figures this out because it's going on way longer than anyone is comfortable with. So
Yeah, exactly. You also did a Sinatra birthday bash with us, and with a year we had Dina Dina Martin, Dean
right.
Martin's daughter. And we, for those of you who didn't know, we had like casts of dozens of singers. It was like way too many, but we wanted to make it a festival kind of thing for Sinatra each year. And Tony was one of our featured singers. And I think you did. I forget what the duet was, but I saw you did a duet with Dina, but I can't remember for the life of me what tune that was. It must have been like something stupid, right?
I think it was something stupid.
There you go.
The song, not something stupid.
Right.
It's actually, I know I stand in line until you think you have the time to spend an
That's right.
evening with me. That one.
There you go. See, if I had her online right now, we could do the duet, but it wouldn't be at all in sync. So, what the hell?
Then it really would be something stupid.
Then it would be something stupid. Very good. You know, you had mentioned that you have this setup now in your studio basically, and you set this up really before the pandemic, so you kind of lucked out.
Yeah, well, part of this whole, what I have here started when I first started learning piano. I was about 10, 11 years old, and I didn't learn on an acoustic piano. I learned on a Kurzweil keyboard, and along with that keyboard, my dad also got a little MIDI sequencer and a drum machine. So, and a like a 4-track cassette deck. So when I was 12, 13 years old, we had an old hockey table that we weren't playing air hockey on anymore. So we put a big piece of plywood on it, and that was our first studio. So I had the keyboard on it, I had my sequencer, I had the drum machine, and the 4-track, and so I learned how to use that stuff back then, and then over the years I've kind of just grown up with the technology as computers took over, and I had the first version of Cubase, which is just a sequencer. It didn't even record audio back in the 90s. So throughout, I've just been slowly kind of building stuff and updating. And when we moved here, I had a lot of stuff, and my vision was that I would do a lot of things eventually in my studio and do live streams. I actually set up to do live streams about a year ago, and I was so busy on the road. I had all this stuff here, and I never used it. I think up until this year, I think in 2019 and 18, maybe I put out a total of 8 or 10 videos. I've put out 138 videos since March.
Wow. I mean, essentially you've been training all your life for the pandemic.
Kind of. I mean, it kind of seems like I was pretty prepared for it because I've been working on, along with my performing, all that. I've been, constantly working on my audio engineering skills, on my video skills, lighting, color correcting, video editing. So now it just happened to be a point where like I had no way else to work with anybody else, but I have these skill sets that I've been working on for a long time that kind of all of a sudden were very, very useful.
We were talking earlier yesterday or sometime, and you had mentioned the thought that it hadn't even occurred to me. But imagine had this pandemic happened, like you said, what is it, 1990, where
Yeah.
we didn't have this capability of Zoom and online things and Facebook and all this stuff, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I know. Be
it
a
would
whole
have been
different story.
completely different story.
Yeah.
What makes you think back to 1918 when it hit, what they must have gone through.
Yeah.
At least we have the ability to connect with each other like we're doing here, for Pete's
I
sake.
know. I feel like I'm in the room with you here. So
Yeah, there you go. You're in the Zoom room with us. It's great to see everybody here also listening. And, I don't know if Jacqueline mentioned it, but feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat link, and we'll either read them
There are
or
a few questions in there already.
why don't you go for it?
Sure. So Richard asked on the daily diary tunes, I've been noticing quite a bit of stride style. Were there any particular players who made you want to play that way?
Yeah, good question. So my whole fascination with piano really began with ragtime. So early on, I don't remember exactly where I heard it. Probably my parents had an album of the soundtrack to The Sting, which Marvin Hamlish did, and The Entertainer was on that, and they used to play that, the vinyl record of that. And I just loved it, even when I was, probably, 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. So the first thing I wanted to play on the piano, when I took lessons, was this. And the other thing is, I'm really supposed to be left-handed. But my mom kind of forced me to be right-handed. But so I found out when I started to take piano that my left hand, and it still is, my left hand is the thing that is unique and kind of different than other piano players. My right hand, it's kind of like other people's left hand, I kind of feel. But when I'm playing, I can really do anything. I can hit any note. I just, my hand will just go there. So my brain is kind of set up for stride piano. So I was always fascinated with the big leaps on the instrument as I'm playing, and even like I don't care how long how far it is away, and even fast. So of course I loved Art Tatum, and then Oscar Peterson loved Art Tatum. So Oscar Peterson took it to a level of doing it really quickly, and so on. So yeah, so stride is really a foundation. It's kind of the backbone of how I learned to play. So now when I do the daily diaries, I kind of throw that in. I'd say stride is happening about at least 30% of the time.
Well, we have something interesting that might go right along with your love of the piano. What do you say we take a look at that?
Oh, sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it on
Okay.
on the other side.
I love a piano, I love a piano. I love to hear somebody play upon a piano, a grand piano. It simply carries me away. I get a huge kick on an acoustic. I love to run my fingers o'er the keys, the ivories, and with the pedal I love to meddle. When Paderewski comes this way, I'm so delighted to be invited to hear a long-haired genius play. So you can keep your fiddle and your bow. I want a Piano. I want to stop right beside an upright or a high-toned baby grand. get a huge kick on an acoustic. I love to run my fingers o'er the keys, the ivories, and with the pedal I love to meddle. When Paderewski comes this way, I'm so delighted to be invited to hear a long-haired genius play. So you can keep your fiddle and your bow. I want a Piano. I want to stop right beside an upright or a high tone, baby.
Awesome. Nice. That's what.
How about that, huh?
It was fun to see that again. I haven't watched that in a very long time.
You know,
So,
that
was summer of 2013, before my son was born. So the thought occurred to me: all those little kids are like in college now.
I have been talking about trying to get that very thing done here in Red Bank for a while now. It may eventually happen, but I'm working on it. I'm getting like pianos planted around and painted up and stuff, so that people can just come around and play it if they want. All right, what is that? Am I still sharing? Is Tony frozen? He's frozen.
I am not. I'm right here. Can you see me?
I got you now. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
That
but
was
that
quite the
great.
elaborate production.
Who's talking?
That was Carmen. I just said that was quite the elaborate production. How long did it take to shoot that? Because that was a lot of pianos.
Yeah. So when so Sing for Hope, which is the non-for-profit that puts those pianos out, had been doing it about once a year, maybe once every 2 years, while I was living in the city, and I always wanted to do something like that. And finally, I heard that it was coming, and so got my wife, who was pregnant. She was like 7 months pregnant, and one of my good friends from college, and then this really talented film student, like recent film grad, Robbie Vicencio. So there was, and I wanted them to look like they were just tourists. I didn't want it to look like a film shoot, so people would feel free to be natural and come up to the piano. So we did that all in one day, though. My wife drove the getaway car, and there was a map on the Sing for Hope website that showed where all the pianos were. So we just drove around with the two camera guys. I sat down. You know, most of the day was waiting in traffic, because once we got to a location, we just walk up to the piano. I'd sit down, I'd play the song once, and then I'd go back. And I don't know, I think we got to about, was it 13 or 14 pianos that in a day. And I thought maybe we'd do another day, but that's the beauty of New York. We got so much great stuff. Every single location, even if it was only 3 blocks away, was completely different than the last location. So, for example, that girl that was dancing on the pier, so the piano was out on the pier on the west side, I think. And when we arrived there was already a film crew there. They were going to shoot a music video around this piano, but they weren't actively shooting, and I said, oh no, we came all this way and it's not going to work. So they appeared to be waiting for somebody, so I just asked, can I sit down and play? It'll take 5 minutes. And they said, sure, we're waiting for the drummer. So it turns out it was one of the cast members of Mamma Mia that was like doing this video, and he had his friends who were in the cast. So they were just sitting around waiting for this thing to start. So I played, and that's a star of Mamma Mia at the time that got up and just started dancing randomly, and it was one of those magical things that we caught on video. So the whole day was kind of like
So
that.
cool.
Did you have to get her to sign a release?
I didn't, no. But
Interesting.
she never came after me.
Right. Right.
I also didn't make any money off of it, so there's not much.
Also, I got to tell you, those street pianos sounded awful good, Tony.
Well, I actually, yeah. So I actually showed up to a
You
shoot
want
with
to
the
give it
idea
away?
of recording the performances, but what ended up happening is that you realize how loud the city is when you try to mic a piano on the street because I put a microphone, I'd even put it like open the top or whatever, or put it behind it. You couldn't hear the piano over the street noise. So I ended up that piano is actually the piano that you're hearing is the Yamaha Grand at Skywalker Ranch, and in Marin County in the big scoring studio stage. That's what they play on all the movie scores and all that. So that's that piano and the vocal. After I cut all the video together, I lip synced to myself singing it just to get a clean vocal. Otherwise, it would have been the video would have been you wouldn't have heard the audio at all. Would have been terrible.
I just had to give that away because it's such a
Yeah.
cool,
Well, yeah.
cool thing to know.
That's so, yeah, that is cool.
Any other questions?
Yes, there is another question in the chat from Zach, and he asked, "What did you practice to get stride technique like that?"
Well, at first it was like I mentioned, ragtime. And then it was just the sheer will of wanting to do it, just putting in the hours of working on just being able to just kind of think of chord changes and have it just automatically go, no matter if I'm talking or if I'm playing something else. Just kind of have it so automatic in my brain. And then, it's kind of like practicing patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time, just those. And then when I'd encounter a rhythm that was difficult, I would then just keep at it until it became natural. So I think that's what a lot of people do, especially in jazz, when you want to improvise, especially in something like stride, when you have to keep, unlike normal kind of jazz comping where it's more focused on the right hand and you're just making chords, just that type of movement. This is a more rhythmic kind of. And also, I grew up with my dad playing Chet Atkins fingerstyle guitar, which I came to realize later is kind of like the guitar equivalent of stride piano. So I also had that kind of early in my brain, as a kid. And there's still days where I'm really good at it. I feel like I'm really solid at it and I can hit every note. And then there's other days where I feel like I'm just falling all over myself and keep hitting, wrong notes and grabbing wrong chords. It kind of just depends on the day. But it's,
many may not know, but stride piano was like a thing. It was like almost a cult or a club. They used to have cutting contests. Yeah. Even right here in Newark, there would be stride pianists come from all over the world, basically, to try and cut each other in contests.
Right. Outstride each other. Yeah, I've had that. I've been challenged to a few of those over the years from guys that play stride. They want to play down. It's almost like those tap dancing contests where they're like,
right.
They have you do it. Yeah.
Can I just throw something in? You know who really was the player of all? It was Monk. He grew up listening to James P. and Willie the Line up in Harlem, and it never left him. You listen to Monk's music, you always hear the hint of that stride in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really, there's some jazz pianists that think it's so old, but it's like you either love it or you don't, but it just makes me so happy to hear stride and play. It's just such a joyful way to play the piano. Thanks, Joe.
Joanne in the chat asks a question. When wandering the city, when the pianos were there, many terrific spontaneous concerts, though brief, did happen. Did people know who you were when you were playing back then?
No, they had no idea. But and what was interesting is every time I'd start the song, of course there'd be nobody around, and then by the end of the song's about 4.5 minutes or whatever. By the end of that, there'd be a crowd around the piano. So that was kind of a cool thing. you know, that people wouldn't gather it as, oh, this guy's going to play the piano. Let's gather around. They'd have to be walking by and stop. So it was hard in editing the video to get in early in the song a lot of reactions from people, but I found a way to make it work.
That's great. Glenn asks, maybe you can weigh in on the age-old question: is the piano a string or a percussion instrument?
Well, the beauty of it is that it's both. I mean, I think I use it a lot as percussion, but it's more like representative of to me like an orchestra. You know, I think when I'm playing at my best, I'm thinking of it almost like an orchestral arrangement, which I do. I arrange for orchestra too, but like, you know, you think of like, you know, you got the contrabasses and tubas, and you got like, you know, French horns, and then just kind of like thinking in a way of textures, but it can be very percussive, right? So you can, you know, sometimes I play something, you know, when I sit down every day to do my diary, there's like a certain kind of toolbox I have to do some of these songs, because I don't have a band, right? So there's only so much you can do. But you could do a song like, I took a trip on a train. You could just do that, and I thought about you. Or you can make it more rhythmic. Past the shadowy lane, or stride, I thought about you. Or more like 2 or 3 cars parked under the stars, a winding stream, moon shining down on some little town, back to stride with each beam, same old dream. At every stop that we made, oh, I thought about you. And as I pulled down the shade, I really felt blue. You know, and so on. So it's like, you know, when I do the daily diary, it's like just always in the moment, just kind of trying to make it complement what I'm doing in my voice, and vice versa.
So the piano is everything to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's a percussive instrument in the sense, of course, that you got hammers hitting a solid
Right.
object that vibrates, but also it's so lush and beautifully harmonic. So that's why I fell in love with the piano. So I mean, it's just one of those magical instruments.
So I'm curious, Tony, is there a dream project that you have yet to do? Something that I mean, you have levels, like you've kind of pushed yourself to grow, and in your new home, you've got the studio, and so there seems like you're always kind of pushing to the next level. So what would be next level for you, and something that you're thinking about?
Well,
Post-COVID.
the thing that I think has been delayed, well, obviously it's been delayed. I was planning on having it probably done by now, but this last year, I was planning on recording an all original big band and strings album with all songs that I arranged that would be very much in the style of the 1950s Nelson Riddle charts. And you know, because a lot of people have recorded "Fly Me to the Moon" again, right? So it doesn't need to be done. I mean, it can't be done any better. But I have these originals that I really think that people seem to like, and I think would work. And the thought of presenting it in that way, of these kind of what's a modern day version of "Songs for Swingin' Lovers" by Frank Sinatra? You know, that was kind of the thought. So that's really my dream project, to do a bigger recording project. I mean, the problem is it's so expensive. But I've been working on the skills of arranging, and I took a class with Chris Walden to kind of polish my arranging skills, and I even have a couple of the charts done for that album, but it's not going to happen anytime real soon. But that would be I would love to have a really, great sounding studio orchestra album.
Well, I can imagine it would sound fabulous. And my curiosity is, how do you, what's the budget of something like that in terms of what would something like that cost, and the number of people you would be having?
Yeah, well, that's why it's so expensive. So you'd have.
I can tell you.
in the core big band, you got about 17 players, and then however many strings you can afford, and I wanted harp too. I was going to record it in L.A. I mean, I was looking at probably doing 2 sessions and costing about $100,000.
Yeah, in order to do it right, that's about the range.
Yeah.
That's $100,000 for both sessions, right? Not each.
Yeah, yeah, and
Total
that's not
produced.
including mixing. That's not including. But I would probably, one of the things, one of the reasons I've been able to survive doing this music, which has a small following, is that I do like for the last 4 or 5 years, I've mixed and recorded all my own albums, and I've just made it a point to try to get as good at it as I can. Well, actually, my last album, I mixed most of it, but Bill Moss, he used to work at NOLA, did the final touches, and he did a great job. But yeah, so maybe I'll get to that. I mean, right now, the thing that I'm doing, in addition to the daily diaries, adapting. I've got most of my work has been in symphony orchestra pops. So I've got a gig with the Detroit Symphony in October, where they're going to do a socially distant, small kind of chamber group. So what I've been doing after my daily videos is I go and I'm adapting my full orchestra charts for a smaller group. It's a smaller string section, 1 French horn, 1 flute, 1 oboe, 1 clarinet, harp, and rhythm section. So I'm doing that. Then next month, I just signed on to score a Lifetime Christmas movie. So I've scored 3 other films, and this will be my 4th. And it's really stressful, but it's fun, and it's really gratifying to have the movie air and see my name. Music by Tony DeSare. It's fun. It's because before I got into piano, and I mean, really, my first love of music was film music. I loved all the the great John Williams scores from the late '70s and '80s, and I just was totally fascinated with that, and it's been fun in recent years to learn how those things were put together. It sounded like impossible magic, when I'd hear something like the Superman March or the E.T. Bicycle Chase or something like that. And then since then, I've spent hours on planes studying the score and kind of figuring out how all that stuff is put together.
I have some old Korngold scores and
Oh, yeah?
and some others, yeah. That are fascinating from the early days of film. Tony, you should mention what this daily thing you're doing is, because people may not know about that, and they could certainly tune in to that.
Yes, sure. So, well, in mid-March, I was just starting a 3-week tour of the Midwest. We were going to do like 17 one-nighters in 21 days. And we did the very first show in Cedar Rapids, and then the whole tour got canceled. So I found myself, as we all did, at home with no gigs and no idea when they'd come back. And so I got home, I think, on a Saturday, and then Sunday I just sat around. I don't even think I got out of my sweatpants. And I realized Sunday night, it's like I can't do this every day. I need to have something that I can do and some sort of structure. So the next day I got up, and the first thing I did after I got ready, I took a shower, I kind of got dressed kind of like I am now. And I recorded a video and I put it out, and it felt really good to do it. And then I did it again the next day, and then by the 4th day, I just committed myself to do 1 a day. So I did the first 100 days all in a row without missing a day. And then since then, I do about 4 to 5 a week, and then I've got so many now I can do a rerun back from March or April, and I don't even remember that I did it, let alone my audience. So it's been really, really fun, and the side effect of it, other than kind of the joy of being able to still perform, is recording every day, lighting myself, doing a video, mixing audio, and then just practicing recording. I mean, I've gotten way better at it, and it's really been fun to. It's like an excuse to practice and really practice, and you have to clear a bar of having it good enough to be a recording. So no wrong notes, at least wrong notes that people will notice, and I
So,
have to get all the
so if
words
you,
right, get all the pitches right, you know.
so if we go to your YouTube channel, we'll be able to see all of those,
Yep,
right?
they're all. YouTube is the best way to kind of see the archive of them. I post them every day on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
You know, there's a project that you did produce that is really very interesting. I think I'd love to show that.
Sure.
So let's do that, and we can talk about that on the other side.
Okay.
And this.
Nothing's impossible, I have found. For when my chin is on the ground, I pick myself up, dust myself off, start all over again.
Don't lose your confidence if you slip. Be grateful for the pleasant trip and pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again.
Work like a soul inspired till the battle of the day is won.
You may be sick and tired, but you'll be a man, my son.
Will you remember the famous men who had to fall to rise again? So pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again.
I'll get some self-assurance if your endurance is great.
And I'll learn by easy stages if you're courageous and wait.
To feel the strength I want to, I must hang on to your hand. Maybe by the time I'm 50, I'll get up and do a nifty. Confidence if you're slipping, so it won't be too hard. Start all over again.
Yeah.
Work like a soul inspired till the battle of the day is won.
You may be sick and tired, but you'll be a man, my son.
Will you remember the famous women who
Had to fall to rise again, so let's pick ourselves up.
dust yourselves off,
Dust yourselves off. Pick yourselves up, pick yourselves up, dust yourself off.
and start all over.
Start all over. Start all over. Start all over.
You gotta pick yourself up and start all over.
Thank you for watching Pick Yourself Up. It was a true joy to collaborate with all my talented friends. And please share and like away, because the more people who see this, the more money we will raise for the Actors Fund. The Actors Fund is a wonderful organization supporting musicians, actors, entertainers in need. And even if you can only donate $1 or $2, please consider. So there's a link right here, actorsfund.org/jazz, that lets you donate securely. And thank you so much for watching. While you're here, you might as well subscribe to my channel. I'm Tony DeSare, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody.
Tony.
That was great.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had to play the whole thing, Tony. It's too good.
Thanks, Joe.
Did you mix that and produce that yourself as well?
Yeah, I did. So around the time that I started making the daily videos, I really wanted to try to do something that could actually help some people, and I didn't really know what that was since I couldn't leave the house, and all I can really do is sing and play and mix audio and edit video. And those are the things I'm best at. So I reached out to a lot of my friends. I called, Steve Tyrell and Clint Holmes and John Pizzarelli and piano guys, and these are all people that I've met along the way. And Ted Firth and I arranged the tune, and then I just, had them send the recordings of them playing it, and I put it all together.
What do you edit with video-wise? You just talk about.
Yeah, I've used for a long time Adobe Premiere Pro.
That's the standard. That's like the professional.
Yeah. These days, yeah.
So there's quite a learning curve, but once you get by that, it's such a great program. I mean, you can do anything that you want to do in video with that program. So, I use Cubase. I use Cubase Pro to mix audio. Both of those are amazing pieces of software.
And what kind of technology you use? Is this a big computer, several computers? What do you got going on there?
I've got a computer that I built that's my home studio computer. It's in a case that looks like a small refrigerator because I wanted to make a silent computer. So it's a very big case, and I custom built it a few years ago, and it's got 14 hard drives connected to it because I also use it to score movies. So I've got a lot of samples on that, and then my video computer, I wanted to be able to edit on the road, so I bought a Razer, or the Razer Blade Pro, so I could edit videos when I was on the road. So that's what I used to do the videos on.
Well, I hate to say it, Joe, but you were saying earlier at the beginning of the show that the crowd was silent because all the women were falling in love with you. Well, he doesn't just sing and play piano, but he builds his own computer and he edits and he mixes music. Man, you're some kind of guy. And you're good looking. My goodness,
it's putting me to shame.
We're all like, okay, let me just step back here.
I hear you.
Well, but
we did.
You know what though? It's like this stuff. All of this stuff took me a long time to get good at because, when I first kind of debuted in New York, I think back to that time. I was learning to do all this stuff at once, and I think that it didn't probably serve me well that I didn't just focus on being the best singer I could or the best piano. Like I always was interested in so many things. But now I've been at it for so long. I mean, I'm 44. I'm 44 years old, and I've just been plugging away at all these skills, like on a weekly basis or daily basis for the last 20 years. And I hope that I'm better at it. I hope that I'm good at some of these things by now. When I do master classes for students, I advise, especially now that artists, especially in jazz, can't afford to have a whole team of people. You can't afford to pay somebody to edit your videos and mix your audio. You're never going to make any money. So I advise people to be a jack of all trades, master of some. So there's certain things that I'm not good at and will never be good at, like graphic design. I know if I need to design my CD cover or art for my website, like I'm not going to be good at that. I don't have skill sets in that area. So I'll hire somebody to do that. But I've made it a point to be able to be independent in the sense that I'm not limited by, not being able to record my own music and put it out. I wanted to be able to do that, but it's taking I've had a lot of luck along the way. When I was on a record label, I was on Telarc Records, and I was working with world-class engineers that had Grammys on their shelf, and these were the guys that taught me how to use an EQ and how to use a compressor. How to mix audio. I learned in person from them, and then when I'm on the road, the way I go to sleep is I put YouTube videos on about, how to EQ an acoustic bass or something, or how to mic different instruments. That's just a habit that I've been in for years now, and it's one of those things where it's like I never felt like there was like one moment where I felt like I was good at it, but now cumulatively, when I do something like Pick Yourself Up, there's a background there of a lot of years of experimenting with, doing videos where I put things in boxes and move them around, or in masks, or being able to, in color correcting footage, and then audio, all those little things that along the way I learned how to do. Like, for example, the tap dancer footage, which is so great, but he sent it to me. He did it outside in the city, and it was full of street noise and all that. So, I have a plugin that can go and kind of filter out all the noise except his tap dancing. Just stuff like that. That over time, it's just like, the skill sets just have matured in a way where I feel good about it now. I feel good about the stuff that I'm putting out. I'm proud of the audio quality of my daily videos. I'm proud of the way I'm singing now. But I can't say that was the case, even 10 years ago. So I'm glad that they finally kind of coalesced in a way, before I got, just way too old to even do any of it. But thank you for the compliment about that. But it's just really just been 20 years of putting one foot in front of the other, learning this stuff, and it's kind of a stubborn will to get good at it.
It's called paying your dues.
Yeah.
Tony, can I jump in, Joe?
I was just gonna bring you in because we have a question about, are there venues in Atlanta similar to informality and spirit of Shanghai jazz? And I was going to introduce Brent Runnels, who I know is planted down in Atlanta and has an organization down there that I've worked with on a few occasions. And I wanted to introduce Brent to Tony in any case. There you go. Go for it.
Yeah.
Well, it's so impressive what you do, Tony, and it strikes me as the classic pianist syndrome. The pianists have to do everything for themselves over time. You don't see too many violinists playing and doing their own recordings and mixing. And you do. It's a classic kind of piano syndrome that we end up having to do everything for ourselves all along. So you become
other than Aaron Weinstein, who we had here as a guest, and he's doing his own videos and stuff too.
It's amazing what people are doing now all together. It's kind of like the way the industry has pushed everything into, as you say, you have to do it for yourself. It's harder to have a team around you.
Well, and the tools are incredibly affordable now.
Right.
So that's the thing. But you still have to know how to use the tools. That hasn't changed. So that there was a point not too long ago, I mean, just 15, 20 years ago, where it was out of reach to get good recording quality without spending, $200,000 on a console and, having all these outboard compressors and EQs. And so really my strategy here is I have my vocal channel, and when I do an album, my vocal channel is the only really expensive channel where I have a really high quality a really great tube mic. And then the other stuff, is just, it's all good, but it's like you don't have to buy 40 channels of premium, signal path. You just have to get one great one when you're doing something like I do. So all those things have kind of come together and kind of matured as I've matured with the technology as well.
Well, even the quality of your piano playing on Zoom right now and the vocals, it shows that you're in a studio environment rather than just talking into the computer. It's clear. It's recording level quality. I mean, in the classes that I teach on Zoom and the lessons that I have to teach, it's anybody that's tried to teach music now in the age of the pandemic over Zoom, it's a nightmare. The signal drops, and if both sides don't have the quality of the equipment, it shows. I'm curious, maybe to try to get to the answer of whoever asked the question about venues in Atlanta. What part of town do you live in, and what brought you to decide to move to Atlanta?
Yeah, so I live in Cumming, Georgia.
Okay. Yep.
Do you know near Alpharetta?
Sure.
So
Up north a little bit. Yeah.
right, and where are you?
I'm right in town in Inman
Oh, right in
Park,
town.
right downtown. I've lived here for 25 years. So kind of bought a house that the neighborhood changed around us and gentrified, and it's become really kind of a hip in-town neighborhood that it wasn't when we first moved here. So,
Right.
and I've also done the same studio thing. Added a one to the back of the house with two Steinways. So hopefully,
Oh, nice.
hook up and you can come down and show.
Yeah, yeah, we got it. You know, one of the things that I haven't done yet. I mean, I've lived here 2.5 years. I have yet to play a gig here.
Uh-huh.
I've just been on the road constantly, obviously until March. So I was on the road so much. I mean, it was so fortunate to have the work. But on the other hand, I just was always, even when I was home, I was too exhausted to go out and check out music or go anywhere. So really, up until March, I barely went anywhere except between the airport and my house, and
Well,
just was on the road.
maybe we can start to explore your big band idea, because the organization that I've been running that Joe mentioned is a big band centered organization, and
Oh yeah,
there's a
great.
lot of top-notch players in town now. There's several groups that are
Well,
really.
I did go out one night to see music. I saw Joe Granston's big
Yep.
band.
Yep.
What is it? Cafe? What is it? Cafe?
Cafe 290, yeah.
Cafe 290,
Yeah.
and they just blew me away. Those guys, like I was kind of expecting, because I met actually my TMJ dentist. I have TMJ told me about this band. He's a piano player and singer before he was a dentist, and he wanted me to go meet Joe, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go see an Atlanta big band. I'm going to prepare myself
Or in the
to be
mood.
let down, because I'm used to seeing like Birdland, bands come through Birdland, and I was blown away. They were every bit as good as anything
Yep.
I've heard in New York, and it just
Well,
sounded great. And it was
we started that gig together, Joe and I, when he was on my board of the organization over 10 years ago. It's an amazing run that he had at that club before everything had to shut down.
and what a great thing to hear a big band in a room like that, because it's so tight and it's just swings so hard. And I really, I mean, that was now. Let's see, that was a year and a half ago that I saw him. But Joe and I have kept up a bit, and he's like, for example, the Atlanta Symphony. I performed with the Atlanta Symphony 3 times in the past, but I haven't performed with him since I moved here. But he was doing New Year's, and we interacted about. I let him use some charts of mine, and
Yeah, great.
And so I would love to get more into the local scene, absolutely, because I'm here, and I would I just haven't had the opportunity.
Let's work on that. Would love that.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. Look forward to it.
Thanks so much, Brent. Hey, Carmen, are you around somewhere? I don't see you. There you are.
I haven't gone anywhere.
Good. Carmen is our development director and helps us as a fundraiser, and helps out our organization in many ways, including these Zoom meetings. I wonder if you wouldn't give a little chat about the organization.
Just a little chat here. Let's just thank you for tonight, Joe. I mean, thank you for all the nights. Let's just give a round of applause to Joe for hosting Mondays with Mooch every week. Joe and the team, Jacqueline and Melissa, have gotten stellar at our production, and the artists have been amazing.
Don't forget Ocean.
And Ocean First. I apologize. Thank you, Joe. Ocean First has been one of our most tremendous supporters. And a lot of you have been some of our greatest supporters as well. I see your faces every week, and I'm starting to get to know some of you folks every week. So thank you for coming and joining us tonight. What I will say is, Joe is, I think you're kind of nearing the end of your summer program. I think you've got about 2 weeks left. So we are doing our middle school summer camp.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks left. So and those are daily. That's 5 days a week, right, Joe? Isn't that 5 days a week? Yeah. So it's a lot of work. And how many team are you working with? About how many teachers you have?
It's over Zoom though. We have
I
8
know it's over
teachers on
Zoom.
board. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it's over Zoom, it's still work. You still have to show up. You got to turn that computer on, and you got to
I
have
tell you,
that shirt on.
it's more work. We're basically producing a TV show every day.
Yeah. And so the work is still happening, and it's bringing people together. And I think that's the thing about music education; it brings people together. So just want to thank Jazz Arts Project for bringing us together. And the way that we do that is with your support. So please continue giving to Jazz Arts Project. The organization has not stopped working because of the pandemic. It's working even harder. So we want to thank you for that. I'm going to give you the link right there: www.jazzartsproject.org/donate. And Tony, I'm just letting you know right now, you're on my list. I will be calling you for a little support around some fundraising, because I saw that beautiful video you produced. And so even if we got a smidgen of that, that would be fabulous. So thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
Give me a call. Okay.
And I should say, not just in relation to this evening, you have a new friend request on Facebook. So we have 9 mutual friends, I think, Tony. So
okay.
I hope you'll accept. But I did become a follower, and I'm following you on Instagram, and I'll be checking out your YouTube videos. I actually think it's pretty impressive that you did a daily diary, and I like to do a daily meditation in the morning, but I'm going to incorporate a little song of Tony once a day just to kind of get me started. So that'll be nice.
Well, and you know, it's funny because I tell my friends that it's this thing that I do, the diary, is like my daily meditation, because it's the first thing I do, and just it makes me so present to have to come here and pick out a song and get it up to the level. It's not just casually like, oh, I'll just play through, like today I did Love Is Here to Stay by George Gershwin and Ira Gershwin. And it's not, you know, I have to get myself in a way where it's like I have to clear everything else out of my head to focus on the music. And then so that's the recording phase and the mixing phase. So the whole thing takes me about an hour and a half or 2 hours. And even if I felt kind of down in the dumps as I started, or maybe I felt like I didn't really want to do it, by the time I get the video out, I feel like I'm starting my day like refreshed, like I did a meditation, and I've already accomplished something like so good for me that I put something out and shared music with people, and then all day the comments pour in about that it means something to them, and it's just been a great thing. I don't do the daily diaries for income. I don't ask people for, you know, they can, if they want, donate to me, but I really just love the act of making something new every day and then having people see it. You know, just that in itself is enough for me.
That's really fantastic, Tony. I commend you on all of that. I wonder if you wouldn't mind playing a little short something, a couple of minutes, live here for our folks.
Yeah, what do you want?
I don't know.
Should be jazz, right?
He's taking requests.
You don't want to take requests.
Yeah, I know, right?
Our love is here to stay.
There you go.
Well, I did. Let's see. I'll do one thing I've been experimenting with is kind of playing the piano like my dad plays guitar. So I kind of did that with this Burt Bacharach song, "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head." It's not really all that jazzy, but it's just kind of fun to illustrate the similarities of stride and this kind of finger style.
Raindrops keep falling on my head, just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed. Nothing seems to fit. Those raindrops keep falling on my head, they keep falling. So I just did me some talking to the sun, and I said I didn't like the way he got things done. Sleeping on the job, those raindrops keep falling on my head, they keep falling. But there's one thing I know, the blues they send to meet me won't defeat me. It won't be long till happiness steps up to greet me. Raindrops keep falling on my head, but that doesn't mean my eyes will soon be turning red. crying's not for me, 'cause I'm never gonna stop the rain by complaining. But there's one thing I know, the blues they send to meet me won't defeat me. It won't be long till happiness steps up to greet me. Raindrops keep falling on my head, but that doesn't mean my eyes will soon be turning red. Crying's not for me, 'cause I'm never gonna stop the rain by complaining. Because I'm free, nothing's worrying me.
That's great, Tony. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
Does everybody, come on, everybody unmute and let's give him a round of applause. Everybody unmute. Let's hear it. There's one thing that doesn't matter for the delay, you know, applause.
Right.
George had a question about how are you getting such a clear audio coming through.
Well, so in another room here, and you know, since I have my cameras on, I can't get up and move and show you like on my iPhone. But I have a separate room where I have my studio computer and all my gear. So I've got my piano mics and my vocal mic that run into my Cubase setup, and I have it set up to process live. So it's processing my vocal and piano with some compression, some EQ, a little bit of reverb, and the piano is being EQ'd. And then I send that out via a digital signal that comes back out and gets embedded in one of these camera feeds to keep it in sync with the video. So there's a rat's nest of wires right here. So it's a clear digital signal that's going right. What it does is it strips the microphone off the cameras, which the camera microphones are terrible. It strips that audio off, replaces it with my studio audio, and sends it into my laptop, which then broadcasts it over Zoom.
Right, I've tried to do that actually with Logic, and it's. I guess maybe I just need some more trial and error with that.
Yeah, well, I finally just got it right after all these months. I've done 3 live streams and
a lot of trial and error, right?
Yeah, it's my last live stream. My whole audio was distorted, and it was a buzz from my lights. So I decided to figure out how to make it all work on just sending digitally. So it's trial and error. I mean, it's taken me as much as I'm familiar with this stuff. It took me 4 months to figure that out.
Right. Well, it occurred to me that the reason you play a lot of stride is because you probably play by yourself a lot. I mean, solo pianists, right?
I certainly used to, and that's my whole. When I first started in upstate New York, all my gigs were pretty much. I had some trio gigs, but a lot of them were 4-hour piano solo and vocal gigs. And then when I moved to New York City, the same thing. I had a 5-night-a-week piano bar gig, and it's just I have to be my own orchestra. I mean, so now, in recent years, I do some solo shows, but mostly I work with orchestras, and I barely play piano at all. So since this pandemic happened, I've actually reacquainted myself with playing a lot of piano again. And the thing with orchestras is I'm on the road all the time, barely have any time to practice, but when I did have to play, it was very high pressure, so it was kind of stressful. Like in one of my shows, I play the full Rhapsody in Blue with orchestra, and sometimes that's the most piano I'd play all week was on stage performing Rhapsody in Blue. So it was a little stressful.
Practice that piece.
Yeah.
Brent knows that piece.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Rhapsody in Blue, first it was Scott Joplin, and then George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue is what really made me fall in love with piano and actually develop my technique, because at 12 years old, I learned it the best I could, but I just wouldn't stop on a measure until I'd be like, I just like, when I was 12, I was just determined to get that, so then I could get to the point where I could, and then my dream back then was someday to play the orchestra version of it, where, and somehow, somebody gave me the chance to play it. I mean, I debuted it. My first time playing it with orchestra was the Houston Symphony.
Right.
So,
we did it at the Count Basie Theater. I took the original Freddie Grofé and essentially reconstructed it, because the Schirmer's version isn't what it was, right? So I put it back all together, and we did it on stage live. I think it was 2013 at the Count Basie Theater. We had John Coliani as the soloist. I think I even maybe asked you about it, but you were working that day or something.
With banjo?
With banjo, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I do it with banjo. My guitarist Ed Decker, who's a Bucky Pizzarelli protege, plays banjo when we do it. Yeah.
The funny thing is, during that rehearsal, I stopped the orchestra and I said, I never honestly thought I would ever hear myself say this, but I would like to hear more banjo.
Yeah, it's hard for the banjo to pop out over the orchestra.
Exactly.
Yep.
Tony, have you found your tech for the webcasting you do sounds great, with your singing and playing. Have you found any technology that you've been attracted to or that you were impressed by that allows for real-time synchronous collaborating online with other musicians?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard about that there's some things out there, but it's just the physics of it it's hard to get over the physics of it, because there's, music, just a few milliseconds can make it impossible to play together. And just the sheer, there's just so many bottlenecks along the way in between two people that I don't know how they do it. But
yeah, there's something called Jamalong or something like that. They've been trying to do it. It's not working. It's not working
I've listened to a couple of sessions on it. It's interesting. You can go. It's a free program, and it depends on how far apart you really are, because they use servers from around the world.
It helps if you're across the street from each other rather than around the world. Yeah.
Sure.
But you can actually go into sessions that are occurring on Jamulus and mute yourself as you enter and listen to what the musicians are doing. So you can actually listen to live sessions on that program of people who are doing stuff together.
That's interesting. I might want to talk to you about that. I might want to check that out.
Yeah, I think
I would think that the only way to really make that work, if you're playing something in tempo, is to give everybody a common metronome.
Yeah,
and just
it's definitely
have them play to it.
Based. There's a company in Europe at the moment called. They're making something called Fast Music Box, which is brand new tech that they're releasing. That is, it's basically everything, all the syncing and the routing that you need to do in one box, and it's click track based. Most of the stuff that you see instrumental musicians doing is inevitably click.
Yeah.
So hey, folks, we're kind of going way over time here. So we're going to have to close down the official proceedings. And generally what we do is we have an after gig hang. So if anybody wants to hang and talk a little bit afterwards, we can do that. But I think it's probably about time to kind of end the official proceedings. And I just want to, Tony, thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely.
It was a lot of fun. We had, these people will keep you here all night, of course. But thanks so much. thank you all for coming. Thank you all for supporting quasi-live music. And come back again next Monday. We have, what do we have next Monday? Jacqueline, I told you, I forgot completely. Yeah.
We have Vince Ector.
Oh yeah, we have Vince Ector. He's a professor at Princeton University. He's a percussionist, and runs a nonprofit called Arts for Kids as well. So we'll have a lot in common to talk to. And he's been down here playing with, I think, the Jazz in the Park concerts for us. So that'll be next Monday. Come on back and join us. It's free and fun, as you see. And thanks so much for coming. Thank you to our supporters and our Ocean First sponsor. And it's great to see you all. Thanks again, Tony.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank
and
you.
hope to see you all when I make it back on the road. I am by the way in Columbus, Indiana on Thursday. We'll see how that goes. A socially distanced solo gig.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So when you go on the road, will you still continue your daily diary?
Yeah, well, now that I've started on days that I can't do it, I run one from months ago. But my intention now is to build a huge catalog of these songs on the internet.
He runs repeats. That's funny.
I do. I run repeats.
All right. Well,
This is from day 80. Which was only like if you I don't know when it was, but I'll run something and I barely remember that I recorded it.
Right. All right. We're gonna end the recording and the Facebook feed. So thanks everyone so much for coming.